Check, check, check.
Check, check. Hey everybody, it's Rob. We're just about to get started with this week's episode. Less than 10 minutes left. While you got a couple of minutes here, why don't you go check out otheanthem.com. It's where you can find everything Oh the Anthem, including the merch store, the podcast, and all of the videos. Open up a new tab.
Anchor.fm/Oh the Anthem is the place where you can get direct links to all the podcatchers you use to listen to our show every week.
Did you know we record every episode live on Facebook? Of course you do. But make sure that you're liking the page and turning on notifications so you get notified when we go live.
We make a ton of video content between the podcast, the short films, Heretics. YouTube.com/Oh the Anthem is the place for it all.
And of course you can find me on any social network at Robert N. Sheep.
And me at LegendCB5.
And you can find the podcast at Oh the Anthem on all your social networks.
Welcome to Hockey Night in Canada. I mean, the O the Anthem podcast. This is Corey, and this is the O the Anthem podcast.
Good afternoon, everybody. This is Rob. Corey said he wanted it to be light and tight, so I ate a Snickers just to make sure I wasn't hangry. Also, fuck you and everything that you stand for. This is Rob,
Me?
and this episode... No, not you. The understood viewer out there. This is Rob. This is episode 377 of the O the Anthem podcast, coming to you from all over LA. But Corey is there for the final time in the hashtag OTA LA Studios, high above the 110 freeway in downtown Los Angeles, California. Thank you for joining us.
Yes, thank you for listening on your podcast of choice. The easiest way, anchor.fm/O the Anthem. And just because I referenced it there in the open, the first game of the Stanley Cup playoffs or Stanley Cup finals happened tonight. Do you want to take a guess at the teams involved in this year's Stanley Cup finals? I only ask because I know Rob doesn't care at all, nor does he follow it. I just wanted to see if he could wildly guess at the two teams.
Hockey is a cold weather sport. It has to be from someplace that's cold.
Okay, that's good logic.
I've been following the weather patterns lately. So, I imagine the Prince Edward Island Edwarders and the Juneau Alaskan Oilers.
Okay, so neither of those are current NHL teams.
Okay. Well,
I'll tell you though, just so you don't keep guessing like Hartford Whalers and stuff like that. It's the Montreal Canadiens. So you got one of the cold weather teams correct.
damn. Okay.
And then you were looking for another cold weather team, so of course it's the Tampa Bay Lightning.
Oh, okay. Well, yes.
Who won tonight? So
Although to be fair,
Lightning.
I would argue it's probably more chilly in Tampa Bay than it is in Vancouver right now. So,
Yeah, going through an unusual heat streak up in the Pacific Northwest right now.
yeah. And if by the Pacific Northwest you mean Washington, Oregon, British Columbia, Yukon Territory, the Arctic Circle that is shared by Denmark and Canada, United States, and Russia, then yes.
California, Maryland, Arkansas, all these states.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys ever saw the movie 2012, where basically we all have to run south of the border for survival, but we're about to be at that point, I think. I feel like we're almost there. So, although it might be hotter there. I don't know. Does it get hotter as you get?
Closer to the equator you get, the hotter.
So there's literally nowhere we can go. I listen, I told the kids at work,
Maybe
the
Jeff
kids at work.
Bezos is onto something with that flight up to space.
Yeah, listen, if every person who has $1 billion is trying to leave Earth, maybe that's a message. Also, Richard Branson's Virgin Galactic got FAA clearance to take people to space. So the first ship with 17 multi-millionaire, 100-millionaire billionaires will be taking off in 2022 to go to space.
But I mean, like that's just a floating orbit, right?
I mean,
not really. They're
so-
not like dropping you off at the moon with your suitcases or anything like that.
They
Or the
announced
International Space Station or anything.
They announced Virgin Galactic in 2004 and said the first flight would be 2007, and now they're taking the first flight. So what are the chances that thing's just going to like achieve light speed and take off to the next star?
Just keep going.
I mean,
just start playing that Jennifer Warnes and what's his face song, like "Love Lift Us Up Where We Belong."
I thought you were going to go with the Jennifer Lawrence and Chris Pine movie, Interstellar knockoff. What was it called? Where they woke up on the ship and they were going between stars. I can't remember what it is.
Oh, I can't.
Anyway,
there's too many space movies to keep track.
Yeah. By the way, Chris Pine in Tomorrow's War. The Tomorrow War. No, Pratt, not Pine. Pratt. Also, there's too many Chris's. People in the 80s were really unoriginal, just like Roberts and Chris's and Michelle's all over the place, and Jennifer's. But Chris Pratt is in the Tomorrow's War. The Tomorrow War.
Well, you know, it's funny. Not too long, like a couple weeks back, month back, something like that. I saw an article talking about like what the most popular baby names of 2020 were. Like
No,
now that all the
don't
data
stop.
has collected and stuff
Stop.
like that.
Stop. I don't
Hold
want to
on.
know. I don't want to know.
Hold on. I don't remember any of the names, so don't hold me to this list, right? Like, you know how like everyone said to themselves like, "Oh, I'm gonna name my child Moon Unit so it's unique and different."
Yes.
And then all of a sudden, like the best or the top names of 2020 list comes out, and it's like number 2 Moon Unit. It's like everyone trying to be original has now come full circle with like original sounding names being like the top of the list.
Wait, you mean like how parents name their children after the main character from Game of Thrones, and then everybody got to the last season and was like, whoops.
Maybe we should have seen how this whole thing turned out.
Yeah, we should have probably let that play out. I mean, I read the books. I thought I knew, but then I realized he didn't finish the book. So, you know.
He's the best president Germany has ever had. Of course I named my son Adolf. Turn around a couple more years, but it's just like, I've made an awful mistake.
It's been a problem. Although, honestly, if you name your kid Adolf after the leader of Germany, you're probably not thinking it's a bad choice. Also, your kid probably is your grandkid's probably a Trumper right now, so it's okay. You know, things have worked out eventually.
It all comes around.
Yeah.
I don't have a transition for this, so I'm just gonna go right into it. We finally got the sentence in the Derek Chauvin case.
Well, I mean, I think the transition was right there for you, Corey. Like, speaking of fascist, but this one got his comeuppance.
Derek Chauvin. There we go. All right.
That's what they call me, Mr. Transitions.
I couldn't find the tightrope to walk on that one, you know? You seem to have found
Hitler, cop, killing a black guy. You can't find the Hitler, Trump, cop killing a black guy. There's no through line there that I could ever see.
I can't find the nice, socially acceptable. Anywho, Derek Chauvin gets sentenced 22 and a half years. I was telling Rob beforehand, we were sort of going over how a sentence comes through, and this is pretty straightforward for people who aren't familiar or like who are familiar with how judges usually act. They try and split the baby a lot, which is a term to like find the middle in things.
Comes from King Solomon, who
Yeah.
found the ironic thing is it comes from a story of King Solomon, who in fact did not split the baby, but used that.
The baby?
Yes,
Yeah.
he used that as a way to find the true mother of the baby. And instead we just split the baby, which is, you know, more gruesome.
Well, now it's just become a term of like, how are we going to do this impossible thing? Like, both sides are bad. How do we make this as painless as humanly possible? Let's just split the baby. Which is not, again, what did not end up happening. The baby, the real mother was so upset that they were even going to cut the baby in half that she said, I'd rather them have it than you cut the baby in half. And it's like, you're the true mother.
That is the true mother. And then if you see any Christian rendition of that.
Back, and then she held it up in the air. And then so played, Love Lift to the Soul.
Where we belong. That or it's a circle of life.
That one cracks out a bit on the Zoom.
Yeah, my bad, guys. Sorry about that.
Can't turn down your Broadway voice for the Zoom call.
Like, I heard it start to crack and I moved back, but it still wasn't enough because, you know, I just have that projection that just carries. I don't know what to say.
It's okay. It happens.
Derek Chauvin, 22 years. 22.5 years. And 15 before parole.
So in the sentencing guidelines, 40 is the maximum, but there's also a state limit to 30 if you have no previous criminal conviction. So the idea of him getting 40 was kind of already out of the usual parameters of sentencing. That
However, if you are found to be part of a criminal enterprise, that could be an accelerator to 40 and cop. So, you know, I'm just saying, it was right there. They could have made the argument.
They could have. I think probably saving himself on appeal because he used the rest of the police department disagreed with his actions, that they were part of the everyday course of his job. So if he's saying that other criminals who are part of this conspiracy said that he went too far, would probably impeach his ability to use that kind of logic in the sentencing at all.
Well, also, let's be
easier
honest.
turn. I mean, judges also have to be aware to an extent. It's very difficult, but there's a way, hypothetically, that you could argue on appeal that the judge sentenced too harshly based off of something that was incorrect or an undue influence upon the judge in some sort,
I keep making this argument, though.
If the daughter was murdered, then maybe he sentences murderers to the maximum every single time, regardless of whether or not, it was a nun who lost her glasses and accidentally ran over a person at an intersection. There's a.
Well, I mean, again, there's a criminal enterprise accelerator, Corey. So she might get the
again.
40.
That's what I'm saying. He's trying to avoid anything that might be a speed bump to his conviction getting overturned on appeal. So I think the 22.5 is basically 30 was the max that he could reasonably get, and the defense was arguing that he deserved 15 for that one. So 22.5 is the 7.5 in between the 15 and the 30. That's how you get that number. As
I've been arguing, he's not going to survive the 22.5, so it doesn't really matter.
I mean, there is a high likelihood that he will die in jail at the hands of somebody else.
Oh,
that is
high likelihood is a conservative statement, Corey.
Well, I mean, beyond this, he still has federal charges on civil rights violations coming up, and those are years that don't play. When you're talking about federal years, they usually carry a lot more time than state years, and it's going to be hard for him and the other officers involved in the stop to get around the civil rights violation. That will be a pretty easy case, I think, in front of a federal jury. But
yeah, you would think, but I guess we'll see.
We'll see. I mean, for right now, take it for what it's worth. 22.5 years for Derek Chauvin, 15 something with good behavior or something like that.
Yeah, he has to serve 15 before he can even ask for parole. So,
right.
And I think though that's a good standard bearer. So now what we need to do is to go back, and any person in the state of Minnesota who has been convicted and a sentence is longer than 22.5 years, 15 for parole, should have their sentences reevaluated down to at least that amount. Because there's a gentleman in jail in Minnesota for stealing a $139 jacket who is serving life without the possibility of parole because it was his third felony theft. Third felony theft being his third theft greater than $20. All of which were somewhere in the area of $80 to $140. So, life without parole for him, 22.5, 15 for parole for Derek Chauvin, who took a man's life for 9 minutes and 10 seconds.
Yeah, I'm not arguing that the way that sentencing and the framework by which the sentencing guidelines have come through have not been hugely problematic for a long time. But at the very least, at this moment, I'm happy that Derek Chauvin gets time, because that's a stark difference from many other police involved incidents in the past.
Absolutely.
Where officers don't even go to trial. Officers don't even get found guilty.
What is this,
officers
Baltimore?
Don't serve time for the crimes that they commit. I'm obviously, I think if in a vacuum you said murder, what type of sentence does this carry? I think you'd be hard pressed to find somebody who says anything less than 25, probably, right?
Sure. Yeah.
25 to life would probably be somebody's guideline for murder, with the idea being that, there is some situation where somebody is less responsible for the murder, and then there's versions where they're more somebody obviously there would be shades in the law with you could charge somebody with involuntary manslaughter or something like that, which would carry a different sentence than first degree murder.
I don't like talking about plans ahead of time, because then people start throwing around words like,
not preordained. But, I mean, that one kind of works too. It feels like
kind of like
sometimes.
preordained too. And as soon as you said preordained, the actual word went out of my head. Pre-planned. Let's say pre-planned. Huh? Premeditated. Yes. Yeah. Once I start talking about my plans for the day, then the words premeditated start getting thrown around. But yeah. So it's good. It's bad. All I know is I am happy that now I know that one day the TV movie that will be Derek Chauvin's life will end on a close-up on an actor's face who vaguely resembles Derek Chauvin, and a slowly spinning so that his face is rotating in the frame as we pull back from a cold shower floor, and slowly a pool of red spreads out in the water around him. So that's going to be lovely.
I mean, for as much as we talk about sentencing and how it's unfair and the inequity and, 3 strikes and, why does this guy deserve life and everything like that, we could have a similar conversation about how there's no reason that jail needs to be as dangerous and violent as it is. Like,
yeah,
it can't just be jail where people go. But ignoring the fact that there is violence in jail
couldn't happen to a better person.
It's like, it's not, and cops usually get an unusual amount of attention in these sort of violent encounters. So
I have a theory.
I
have a plan. Yeah. If we start locking up more cops, do you think there's a chance that we'll get jail reform where actually it'll become safer to be in jail because the cops will be like, whoa, 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 it is fucking crazy in here. We got to do something about this.
Derek Chauvin with an embattled plea, like, who's going to police the police?
Yeah, Derek Chauvin becomes a national role model.
No, I obviously I want no one to die, including George Floyd, but we're way past that point. So clearly, again, not good news, not bad news, but certainly something different, which is at the very least a step in the right direction, I feel like, of where we will have to be eventually on this whole thing. So,
and I'm going to make this transition, but I want people to know that I absolutely do not care about this next story. Speaking of a step in the right direction, it looks like Britney is about to end her conservatorship.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to make it seem like I care about this story incredibly either. But
listen, it was the first story on your list of stories to cover this week. I had to convince you to take off the bright pink Free Britney shirt because it was like clashing with our whole cutout look here. So listen, stand by your beliefs. All right, just stand by your beliefs.
No, I think I think what's happened to Britney here is wrong, but I think that a huge part of this is because even now, people still don't have a proper understanding of mental health and how it needs to be treated in people who have problems. And, this is not a new thing because, before, people would just be taken to sanitariums and, given like involuntary electroshock therapy and given pills to dull them and stuff there were way more inhumane methods in which people with mental problems have been treated in the past.
Absolutely. Men were forcibly masturbated, but actually, I mean, I was going to say that was a dark period in mental health care, but I mean, was it so bad?
No, but I think that
it wasn't so bad. You're right, Corey. It wasn't so bad.
clearly with this whole Britney case, now that she has finally actually been able to speak for herself on the record, and people have gotten to see that perhaps at least in this case things will start to change for her, and much like sentencing guidelines and prison violence, maybe we can get around to the long-standing problem with conservatorship in this country, and how if you get stuck in one, there is almost no means by which you can properly free yourself.
Yeah, and usually it happens to old people. I think we talked about this before. Usually it happens to older people, and then they just die before they can get out of it. But to have it happen to someone who's young and can continue to fight it in social media and in the press really has kind of opened people's eyes up to it.
Well, yeah, I mean, like there are younger people who do go through something like this too, but usually the difference between them and Britney Spears is that she has assets. So there is an idea that, you know, Britney will be able to continue to make money for herself as long as she has somebody around her to make sure that she doesn't do anything rash or unusual to to ruin her life, and that she needs some sort of guardian around to make sure that she is on the straight and narrow, which is not which in practice is a fine idea, but in theory doesn't work the way you think it does.
You mean like funding a mission to Mars? Is that what you're talking about? Like doing crazy shit, like funding a space jaunt for yourself and then having a petition launched to not allow you to come back?
Talking about Bezos.
Yes.
I mean, I think the problem is that if somebody has any, you know, if you are a normal 30-something-year-old who gets put into a conservatorship, usually you're not making a ton of money. Usually it's somebody who has to, for better part, act like a guardian over you, even at an age where you were considered to be past guardianship.
Yeah.
And you know, there's no means or mechanisms to speak for those people. I'm glad that it looks like Britney will see the other side of this as like a free woman and be able to sort of live her life as she chooses. But I also think that there's a lot of people who literally just cannot speak for themselves in an articulate or eloquent manner, who are stuck in conservatorships too, and they need to be the whole system sort of needs a clean refresh, because we're sort of at the point where, okay, what we're doing is a little inhumane. Maybe we should change it. And, you know, that we've been at that place before with mental health care where, you know, like the sanatoriums were still happening in the 70s and 80s, you know, like at that point, even the ones that were open were kind of like, this is sort of a little barbaric even for what we were for the times, you know. It's like,
and I know I am personally thankful that all of the crazy women out there, who I refer to as just Olivia Rodrigo fans in general, check out my Instagram if you want to know why, but I am glad that they will finally have a new hero to look to when they want to, blame a man for gaslighting and now it'll just be Jamie Spears. You're just like Jamie Spears. You're trying to gaslight me and control me. Not that it's not true that he's doing that to his daughter, but that will be the chorus of voices speaking up.
He'll be the name person for a while.
Yes, from every girl who, you know, is upset that you don't want to take her to dinner, even though you do, and you keep naming places, and she won't pick a place. So finally you say Taco Bell, or you say Del Taco, and she says Del Taco. No, Taco Bell. And then you say, but I don't like Taco Bell. And she says, why are you gaslighting me? You're just like Jamie Spears. You say the thing that I want after so many things that I don't want. And then, you know, sorry, I'm giving Corey, I can see the PTSD in your eyes. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to
I feel like Jamie Spears will be mentioned in conversation over conservatorship, but I don't imagine that it'll be like over Taco Bell. That's just my personal. I mean, he hasn't reached that level of.
You and I have dated very different girls, my friend. I don't.
What was that principle that like everything will eventually degrade to Hitler or something like that?
Oh, it's damn it! It's the law. It's Miller's law, Euler's law, something with an M law.
Yeah.
Hang on, I'm gonna look it up. You keep talking.
it's like you know, Jamie Spears will become the number one point person for, you know, mad rush conservatorships.
Godwin's law. It's Godwin's law. Every argument on the internet degrades into Nazis.
Yeah, I mean, this will, you know, he will be the point person for conservatorship probably for the rest of our lives. I can't think of a more notable conservatorship in my lifetime. Like, this is and again, it's because most of the people who are stuck in them can't speak for themselves.
Yeah.
In any kind of reasonable way, and that's a problem. But I mean, like, I'm glad that Britney is probably going to be freed here, but there's no help for the other people who, you know, for lack of lack of a better term, have trouble enunciating their or articulating their thoughts and how they feel about the situation that they've been placed in.
Well, and
nor do they have the legal counsel on which to do it. So,
speaking of not having legal counsel or being able to articulate the thoughts that they have, we got some news about Rudy Giuliani this week.
Yes, apparently the New York bar does not. That was a good one. I appreciate that. Listen,
I'm just walking around with all of this all the time.
Rob's got his transition game down on that one.
No practice. It's all off the cuff, people. This is just natural talent that you're seeing. I would say I'm like Kobe, but I can actually do the thing that I purport to be able to do. So, just saying.
Oh, the one I will never understand is Rob's consistent to push Kobe. Anyway, Rudy.
I didn't push Kobe. The wind pushed Kobe into the side of that mountain.
Oh, man.
Oh, is it too soon? Is it too soon for that?
It's going to be too soon when you wanted to talk about it last time. Rudy, the New York State Bar has decided that his fibbing, his lying, his mistruths, his using his position as a lawyer to continuously lie in open court is enough that they have decided that they do not want to be associated with Rudy Giuliani anymore and have barred him from practicing law in the state of New York. And I believe that effectively, if I remember how the New York bar, because New York is one of those like super states, right? Like
yes,
where
California is also one of them. Florida is one as well. But you think you pointed it out in the pre-show discussion that he never actually got bar certified anywhere else. He just was kind of able to go and argue because, if you remember the New York bar, you can come here pro hoc vice, which means for this time only.
Yeah.
A little Latin for your asses, just so you know. Walking around with this all the time.
Well, I mean, like,
he could appear pro hoc vice, but
if you're a big name lawyer, you can usually get that, almost in any jurisdiction to an extent. Like, if Johnny Cochran wanted to fight some case in Alabama, like he could hypothetically get temporarily permitted to practice law in Alabama through a waiver in the Alabama bar or something like that.
Well, so the difference.
Like, I don't know specifically if it's Alabama, but like I'm saying, generally speaking,
so
a well-known lawyer could get a case elsewhere, even though they're not permitted in that bar.
This happens in two ways. One, for Johnny Cochran, you would probably see another lawyer standing next to him, and that is the lawyer that is barred in the local jurisdiction. And basically what they say is that, like, oh, listen, this is, this fine gentleman is the primary attorney on this case. I am here in a supporting role. And in my supporting role, I will also be speaking 90% of the time.
I will also be doing the opening and closing statements.
And much of the questioning in between. But the other side of that is, and Johnny probably could have, because he was in the California bar, but also he's a person of notoriety, and sometimes that is an exception to this, where it's like, no, we don't want you practicing here, but then you find a local lawyer who will like sponsor you they'll be the primary, you're the secondary. But the other way,
like high-end lawyers could also include like Rudy prior to being mayor of New York and Trump sycophant. Was the chief prosecutor at the Southern District of New York, which is the crown jewel of the different districts of the U.S. federal court system.
Yes.
So I mean, like, he sort of would have had carte blanche to practice elsewhere too because of that high stature as a prosecutor.
I don't know his history, but there is an aspect also of if he shows up in the Southern District of Maryland and just asks the judge for a waiver, oftentimes because you are the prosecutor from the Southern District of New York, they waive you in to the bar. So that is not a one-time only. That is not with the support of an attorney. They're just like, oh no, you are prominent enough and you've passed a bar that is of the standard that we will allow you to waive you in. This is what Kim Kardashian was trying to do with the baby bar and continues to fail it time after time after time. She's no Rudy Giuliani, which is the biggest biggest insult I can possibly think to give somebody. I would say you're no Kim Kardashian, but you're no Rudy Giuliani either.
It is. I think this. What's making this more glaring of an issue is that a lot of people in Trump's orbit seem to be realizing that the writing is on the walls for them too. Because like Bill Barr went through it this week, where he was like trying to paint himself as like, no, I wasn't a political lackey. I was just somebody who stood for justice where I saw it, and then would argue that he was not a political lackey by sharing a story of him being a political lackey for Mitch McConnell instead.
Yeah, like, not Trump. I'm not Trump's political lackey.
There's a lot of people who are trying to slide out the back exit of what was the Trump White House with what's left of their dignity intact, and it is not a sight to see. I think Bill Barr at the end of this whole thing is going to probably die with a lot of shame based off of what he did as Attorney General. But
I want to give everybody a hint that trying to sneak out the back door of the Trump administration with your dignity at the cost of kneeling before Mitch McConnell and losing your genitals is not a fair compromise. Because I don't know. I can't say this for sure because we have no evidence to support this wild accusation that I'm going to make that Mitch McConnell is part of some sort of cult that castrates men out of a feeling of their own inadequacy and then consumes them for their power. And just so you know, this is how QAnon starts. Because like people just come up with wild shit, and then there's going to be a picture of Mitch McConnell looking in the direction of a man's genitalia and licking his lips, and there we go. Now we're off to the races, and I'm the next Q. Call me R.
All it takes is somebody to doctor a tweet, and then all of a sudden it becomes a thing. I heard this on the podcast. I doctored a Bill Barr tweet. Bill Barr doesn't even have Twitter.
I'm just saying, listen, if there was going to be someone to come after Q, wouldn't it be natural for it to be R?
Oh, yes, that's true. It is right after Q. I have the problem with my ADHD where sometimes I forget what letters come after that.
Like W would make more sense. Is George W. Bush involved? And now Corey's off on his own conspiracy theory. They eventually trace it back, and they're like, he doesn't know the alphabet. That's where this came from. Okay.
3 months later, I'm Charlie Day. Like,
you don't understand, man. Just me on an average Tuesday, as people at work like to tell me. Like, I get sent that Charlie Day gif so much. It is. It should be embarrassing. It's not, but it absolutely should be. Somebody who is listening to me talk to a third person will Slack me the gif of Charlie Day while I'm talking to them. I'm like, shut the fuck up over there. I don't know who you are. Shut up. But speaking of massive conspiracies, Corey, I don't know if you know this or not. We are out of the pandemic, and do not let anyone tell you that cases are going up, that people are getting sick, that people are dying, that there is any problems. Go to work, spend your money, go to bars. Nothing is wrong. Do not put those sunglasses on. Do not put the sunglasses on, Corey. I see you reaching for them. Do not.
What? I don't know.
They live. That was a They Live reference. Because if you put the sunglasses on, you'll see the truth.
Right.
That thousands of people are still dying, including hundreds in the state of California, due to a new variant that is just of no concern. So we're just going to let it go.
No, I mean the Delta variant, which is what we're talking about here, or if you're slow to gain on the curve, the India variant.
It's not the India variant.
It's the one that became popularized as known as the India variant.
It is 4.217.1.2, which is not the India variant. The India variant is 4.217.1.1. These are very different. You would know that if you knew virology and or how to write an IP address. Only two places where that knowledge is important.
Anywho, the Delta variant is becoming a major point of concern across the globe. Israel, one of the first countries to get massively vaccinated. They were at like 85% or something incredible like that, right?
Yep, they have reached herd immunity if you don't count Palestinians. And let's guess what, guys? They don't count Palestinians. They move them so they can open up a theme park. 900 children displaced to open up a theme park in the West Bank. So that's cool. Genocide, apartheid.
But they had to start instituting new restrictions to help curb the cases that are breaking through. Australia is in the same boat. Who else? Japan right now is going through a lot.
Yep. And
of course they're going to host the Olympics in like a month. So that's fantastic.
We got this thing under control, guys. Do not worry.
Yeah. God, if that isn't the most let's put capitalism in front of everything moment.
Well, I don't know. Can we delay the 2020 Olympics to 2022? Is that a thing that we can do?
The IOC literally cannot survive if this Olympics does not go on.
Yeah, so they keep going.
It's like propping up Peacock with like fucking stilts on the side of the road, like trying to keep it from falling over.
The IOC is living check to check like most Americans. How ironic is that?
It just goes back to I keep thinking back to when the pandemic first started, like really becoming a thing in Europe and stuff like that, and everyone was talking about like how things are going to be canceled. And the French Open, or no, it was at Wimbledon that canceled like right away.
Yep.
It's like, yeah, we had pandemic insurance. Everyone's like, you had pandemic insurance? It's like, yeah, it pays for the whole event in case it goes wrong. Like, you don't have pandemic insurance. And like, they survived fine. They made it to the next Wimbledon or French Open or whatever. And the IOC is desperately like trying to move shells around. Like, well, maybe we can have an official marijuana sponsor. Will that bring some money in?
And Garcetti's like, how's that subway looking? How's that subway looking? Maybe we don't need a subway, huh? Maybe we don't need a subway after all. Right? People move are going to be okay? Get them to a bus? Okay.
Olympics get canceled as a thing in LA. It's just like, well, fuck, we were doing all this infrastructure.
Now where are we supposed to put all the homeless? We had them all grouped up together. God.
Now I don't even want to build a subway to the airport anymore.
Literally, it's 12 feet away, and they're like, put your shovels down, boys. We're done. Who else would want this? This is not a project anybody cares about.
We don't have the remaining $74 million required to finish the 4 miles of 4 feet of track required to get this thing off the ground. So sorry, guys. By the way, I'm the type of nerd who watched, there's a video of some guy breaking down all the proposals for the Sepulveda Pass metro plan.
Yeah.
Of a underground metro as opposed to a above ground monorail.
Mm-hmm.
And like all the different policy platforms, and like people are just like passing me, like looking people in the apartment are passing me like, what the fuck are you watching? Like, come on, man, it's infrastructure week. You have to get involved.
Meanwhile, they're watching sharks for fucking 7 days in a row, and then nobody bats an eye. All right, yeah, that's fine. Infrastructure, not sexy. That's why Joe Biden has to do the whole like, oh, we got the bill. I got him to $1.3 trillion.
That reminds me of our cartoon president. But it's like Trump talking to Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer, and it's just like, we were trying to stop Mueller, but he wouldn't listen. And all this ruins infrastructure week.
Oh, man.
Anyway, back to the subject at hand.
Sorry. COVID killing thousands of people a day. Yes.
Yeah. We are. I do think that Americans are not preparing themselves for the eventuality that more restrictions are probably coming down the pike at some point.
No, they're not. You're crazy.
As the Delta variant goes.
We're going to ride this 12 monkeys shit right to the end of the world, and I am so stoked. California, do not shut down. Please do not shut down. Let's just mix and mash these variants together. Let's get the 4.27.1.2. We're going to get that together with the P.1.2 and get maybe a little mix in there of the B.1.2, 18.2.1. Just get it all together. Let's just get a little mash going. Get some heat going. Throw a little vodka cran in that, and maybe some chicken nuggies, in the parlance of all of you folks out there, and maybe
Kids who are watching this podcast,
or adults. Honestly, there are grown people who can drink at my work who say chicken nuggies, and it wouldn't take much for me to go homicidal again. I mean, to go homicidal.
Again, I didn't hear nothing.
But this 22-year-old person who, this 21-year-old person who felt the need to interject in my conversation to tell me, 2002, that's the year I was born. And then, oh wait, no, I guess she's 20, right? 20. She just turned 20? No. Yeah. Yeah?
I mean, she could be 21.
Because I said I'm the class of 2002, 2001, 2002. And she's like, oh, that's the year I was born. I think she was born in the fall of 2001, which would make her... No, she's 20. She just turned 20. Turned 20. So I guess she's also at a bar drinking illegally. Beyond the fact. Beyond the point. She felt the need to interject and tell me that was the year I was born, which is obviously the year that Corey and I graduated from high school. And
the year that we met.
Yeah. Just before I went to throw myself into traffic, she squeaked and exclaimed she was so excited because they were getting chicken nuggies for lunch. And I just said, let's just start mixing all this stuff together. Some vodka crayons, some chicken nuggies, all of these different variants. And let's try to find that magic 95% kill rate one. Let's do it. You know what? I'm with Joe Biden. We can do it. If we work together and we try hard, we can do it. I don't think that's what
he's trying to say. I don't think that's his goal.
I mean, that's what I take from it, that he wants 95% of the world population to die off as well. I know that that's my goal. Joe, you and I are on the same page.
Again, I think you're misreading his public statement.
He keeps saying invest in people infrastructure. I just assume that means like building bridges with the dead bodies that we'll have left over after 95% of the world dies. I am all for that. And I think
talking about Soylent Green.
I mean, I'm fine. I don't need the people. I understand that human flesh tastes delicious. Just need to get rid of the rules that would stop you from eating it.
Doesn't need to put in some Soylent Green.
I mean, it's that old PETA ad that was like, where do you draw the line? It's got a whole bunch of animals, and then like my response is always like, how desperate am I? Because everything to this side of it I already eat, but if I hadn't eaten in a few days, Rover's looking pretty good. Brooks is a very loving dog, but if Corey hadn't gone without food for 9 days, come on, I'm just saying, things get desperate.
It wouldn't be 9 days, but I get where you're coming from.
How long would it have to go before you ate your dog, Corey?
I mean, I don't really want to think about that. I don't.
Which goes first, producer Roberto or Brooks? Who goes first?
Well, I mean, I think does Brooks have food still? Like, is he eating?
I mean, I guess he could be, because I don't know. I wouldn't eat his food. Would you eat his food?
I mean, if it came down to it, I'd probably eat his food before I ate him.
Yeah, you and I would make very different decisions. But on that scale, there are humans on this.
There's a reason why we have dog food week at the various dog food sellers.
Well, I'm just saying that.
Hold on, real quick, sidebar. I know we've talked about this before on the podcast, but I want to mention it again for people who don't know. There is a week where all the CEOs and high-ranking officials at various dog food brands will come out and have a press conference, and in front of them will be a bowl of the dog food that they sell, and they will eat it in front of the reporters who ask them questions while they do it, to prove that not only is the dog food safe for the dog, but it's safe for humans too. And
ironically, it has higher standards than human food.
Nowhere else, by the way, does this kind of showmanship happen than the dog food companies, which I think is
in America, by the way. It doesn't even happen in other countries. It's just American dog food companies. So I'm proud to be in America. At least I know.
Well, and then there's also talk, going back to COVID, that not only are we dealing with the acceleration of the Delta variant, but there's also a Delta Plus, which just sounds like a new streaming service. And
It's it's what you get on Delta Airlines. It's the streaming service only on Delta Airlines.
you pay an extra $74 and you get Delta Plus.
Turns out there's nothing on it. It's just Peacock.
2 inches of leg room.
Unlimited Peacock, but only the free shows, not the paid shows.
2 inches of leg room. You get in the C boarding group instead of the D or the E.
Ooh, fancy. Oh.
No, serious. Sorry. Shouldn't be joking about this.
Mm-hmm.
We need to find little pockets of humor. I'm sorry. The Delta Plus, which is showing to be even more infectious and more capable than the original Delta variant, which is also gaining slowly. But again, this is how all these, the original Delta variant, the Indian variant, started in summer of last year or something like that. Is when it first started making itself clear. So, we've gone from, call it June of last year, to now it being the most dominant strain. So it's, like things like the Delta Plus strain, which are not killing a lot of people or being involved with a lot of cases, could in 6 months' time be the predominant strain all over, or a year's time could be the predominant strain. So, and
the new one coming out of Vietnam, where it is test resistant, meaning it's difficult to find it in a test, but basically they are isolating it based on cases and then doing extreme genetic testing on the patients to find the variant, which is a mix of the Brazil and India strains, which has a very high kill rate and is very prolific in spreading.
That's the gamut, right? Or
no. So I thought it was Gamma. Gamma is something else. This is an unnamed strain because the WHO does not consider it to be a huge threat, because their huge threat standard is about how many tests it shows up on, which seems ironic given that this particular strain is resistant to testing.
Yeah.
Which gives me high hopes for it being the one. It could be the one.
It's funny that, there was the Gibney doc about COVID that came out recently. Probably came out 5 months ago or something like that. Time is an illusion.
Yep.
I think he talked about how there was part of the problem was that there couldn't be agreement on what the tests, because they realized that there was something wrong with the way the original tests had to operate, and they needed to remove something to make it work properly. But because they had already approved the broken test, they couldn't get the new test, even though it was removing one part of the broken test. It wasn't a big deal.
So they manufactured 200 million of the broken ones.
It'd be like if all of a sudden Toyota was looking at their new fleet of Priuses that were about to go out, and it's just every single one of them has a thing where if you shift into drive, it explodes. And it's just well, I think we should send them out anyway and see if it becomes a problem. Wait.
You say Toyota, but Ford actually did that. So, I mean,
and the
Yeah. The whole blowing up thing.
Yeah. I mean, different times, 70s.
Yeah.
There was a time where we used to dump women in water until they admitted they were lying. Different time, the 70s. To make Rob smile.
Yeah. Not all women, just some. Also, is waterboarding considered dunking a woman in water? Does that count? Because that's what I was picturing. I don't know. Anyway, so
moving on.
It's I also listened to a very thorough podcast on which I recommend for everybody, Behind the Bastards, the episode on Bill Gates, which will show you what truly a piece of shit Bill Gates is. And you think it's because, he wants to microchip you, and that's not true. He is a piece of shit because they found that the test that they worked on and the vaccine that they worked on did not work against COVID. And then he pressured partners around the world, especially in poor countries, to purchase in advance the test and the vaccine, knowing they didn't work, because he had promised his corporate sponsors a profit on said vaccine. And the reason that it's the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine and the what's the other one? The Moderna, but it's not. Yeah, but the partnerships. Anyway, the reason it's the partnerships is because the Gates.
BioNTech, I think.
There you go. Yes. The reason that they are that way is because the Gates Foundation basically has been fighting for the intellectual property rights of the vaccine makers, and essentially, the vaccine developers had to partner with one company to protect their IP, which made it expensive, and the West had to buy it and then give it to poor countries. Because it's not about keeping people safe. It's about making money. So that's a real piece of shit.
Yeah, I mean, I think Bill Gates' time is not long for this world, and it's wondering, it's interesting because we've gotten into this before where somebody's going through like a high profile divorce or something like that, and then all of a sudden all the negative stories come about that person.
I can't wait.
And you wonder where all the sources of the information are. But sometimes it just hits that death spiral where it seems like there's enough negative stories in the air. Like, it'll start with Bill was cheating on his wife with interns in the office when he was still working at Microsoft.
Yeah.
Which sounds like the type of thing that a lawyer for Melinda Gates would say to try and make it more difficult for Bill to lowball settle. Right,
Bill did have to leave Microsoft because of a sex scandal. Several sex.
Oh, I know, but
by the way.
I know. I'm saying, but like, that not that it didn't happen. I'm just saying that there are the types of things that get planted in the news, and then all of a sudden enough things get planted in the news where all of a sudden people feel like now is the time for me to talk about all the things that I've been holding back on Bill Gates for.
Yeah.
And that's the point we're at right now, where I think we're in the death spiral of everyone who feels like they can take a shot at Bill is going to take a shot at Bill. I mean, at the end of the day, fuck Bill Gates. I don't give a shit whether or not he's an awful person and shit went wrong. But I'm saying, like, what?
Good. I was channeling my inner Childish Gambino there.
Okay.
I don't know if you've ever seen his comedy special. It's not his. It's Donald Glover's, but you know what I mean. Anyway,
Music Man, think of him as the Childish Gambino. But
I mean, I think of him as either.
Me as a Hollywood man thinks of him as Donald Glover.
So one other thing, because we are at we just hit an hour. One other thing for the week, would be remiss if we didn't talk about two other big stories that are absolutely not connected. And we know that because Snopes and all of the mainstream media tells us they are not connected. And that is in a condo complex in South Florida collapsed under its own weight in what seemed to be a controlled demolition, but absolutely was not in any way a controlled demolition. And 159 people were missing. I think we're still at 111 still missing with like 18 dead, confirmed dead. So... terrible tragedy, and let's say that it was a complete accident. This is yet another sign of why you should want an infrastructure bill, because that condo complex was built at the same time as the I-5 that runs through Miami, and it's made of the same material. And
95?
The spur for 95 is like the 5.
Yeah.
But it's made of the same material. What's that?
The Florida 5.
What?
Florida 5.
Yes.
Yeah.
Did I? Oh no, yeah, not the I-5. Sorry, the Florida 5.
State Route 5. Yeah.
Or maybe it's 295. It might be 295. Anyway, I read a story that was just like, okay, so this highway and this condo were built in the same year. They're made of the same material, steel and concrete. They've been exposed to the same
elements.
The same hurricanes, the same everything. And we've been saying this has been rated D for 15 years now. So we just saw the condo collapse. What does that tell you about the highway? And that is one of the, thousands of miles of highway that has been rated D for a very long time that Joe Biden wants to, improve. But he won't sign the bill without the people infrastructure bill as well. or without whispering creepily into a mic, which is very weird, if you ask me. The other side of that story that is absolutely not connected in any way, especially if you check Snopes and or mainstream media, is that John McAfee, how would people know John McAfee, Corey?
He was the founder and CEO of McAfee Antivirus.
Yeah.
So
if you were anywhere near our age, you know him as the guy who would give you virus software. And I know him as a close and personal hero. Not a friend, although I wish. He is a hero of mine. A dude who just gave no fucks and truly had fuck me money. Just unbelievable. What's that?
I mean, yeah, there's that part of him, but there's also the him in jail and reasons for being extradited to back to America and stuff. Like, I mean, like,
hey, listen,
I understand the fuck me money and all that sort of stuff. I'm just saying, like, I too appreciate that, you know, he does what he wants and stuff like that. But you know, he was
Corey. Why don't you talk?
being charged with tax evasion and stuff like that. So.
Oh, also, who the fuck cares? Because you know, they all evade taxes. What's at your 10 o'clock right now? Okay, now at your 10 o'clock. What's at your 10 o'clock? As you sit right there.
Wait a minute. Like up here?
Nope, that would be 2 o'clock. You're 10 o'clock.
Oh, so I'm sorry. I flipped on the camera. So.
Oh, okay, yes.
Oh, is it the same art that was in Studio 60?
Yes. And,
yeah.
And what is that piece of art?
I mean, it's a cover from Life magazine.
Does it have a feature artist on there? Is it just a general cover? Or?
I mean, they're talking about Bogart, but you know, there's other salient details on that I'd prefer to leave out at the moment.
All I'm saying is, some of our heroes have flaws.
No, I completely understand that. I'm just saying that, and I'm not even saying he's necessarily guilty of what they're accusing him of. He probably is, because you know he's a rich person. It's tax evasion,
and he also was like, "Fuck the government" for the last 15 years, basically.
I'll fucking live in the Bermudas forever if I have to. Like,
yeah,
I get it. I'm just saying, like, he's also. I'm also at the point now where nobody's allowed to be a hero anymore because everyone will eventually fail you. Like,
here's one thing you can say about John McAfee: he never had sex with young girls.
That
never.
We know of.
No. Every young girl that was at the house said he would never have sex with them. Did you not watch the documentary?
No.
Oh, yeah, he was into scat, so there was no sex. It was just...
Good. He just has an unusual fetish instead of something criminal. That's fine.
It's not criminal. It's weird and disgusting, which I can 100% get behind.
Weird fetish. As long as it's not criminal, I don't really care.
Yeah.
I just want to be involved. Like...
Yeah, you know, I don't need pictures. John, I don't need pictures. I get it. You're good. That's fine. Yeah.
Invite me over that night. That's all I'm saying. Like,
it's like a special net with a, container.
We can do coffee without that. We don't need the...
But yeah,
like, there's some point in life there has to be a moment where you're just not doing that, right? So why don't we just live in that ether? Like, I'm okay.
There's a really good documentary of a guy that follows him, and like he like waver between like, is he a hero? Is he a villain? Is he crazy? Or does he really know what's going on? And then like the last 20 minutes just goes off the deep end of like crazy shit that he did. But also, there's an interview that he did with someone where he talked about how we are living in a simulation. He can prove it, and he like he held a gun to he loaded 5 rounds into a gun, clicked it 5 times, Russian roulette style, emptied it out, grabbed 5 brand new bullets out of a box, loaded all 5 in, click, 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 and he said, "You were worried because you thought something was going to happen. I'm not worried because I knew it wouldn't." And he pointed the gun out the door and fired 5 rounds into the sand. So, yeah. I mean, my personal hero. Just saying. Other than the weird sex stuff.
Well, I mean,
I got my
listen,
own things. You
Yeah,
know.
you're no angel over there.
Yeah, I got my own weird things. I'm not gonna say I'm not. You know.
Not like you've been saving it for marriage. You know what I mean?
I mean, I have been. I've been saving it for marriage. By that I mean the vanilla sex that you have all of the time. That's what I was saving for marriage, and I'll never be married.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm so far beyond the point of, because the problem is you start to like somebody, you start to think they have some good ideas, you publicly say that you're a fan of them, and then all of a sudden they disappoint you in some sort of way.
Yeah.
And also, just as another thing, because we talked about like mental health earlier when we were talking about Brittany and stuff like that. I would really appreciate it if people stopped using the term he showed no signs that he was suicidal before people commit suicide.
Yeah.
Because there was a video that Chester from Linkin Park's wife shared of him like 2 days before he killed himself, where he seems like he's the happiest dad in the world with his kids.
Mm-hmm.
And if you had seen him on that day, you would probably say he didn't seem suicidal. I don't know what happened. Because a lot of people, regardless of what, I know that part of what you're trying to make here is that, maybe the conspiracy theories are true and maybe he didn't suicide, it's not a suicide, blah, blah, blah. That's fine. People are allowed to have their conspiracy theories. If some sort of evidence comes up, then I'd be willing to listen more. I don't feel like anything is strong enough for me to connect those dots at the moment. But just generally speaking, when somebody dies of suicide, let us not say they didn't seem suicidal, because you don't know what's going on deep below where those thoughts are really taking place. Because a lot of people who are suicidal don't talk about it. And that's the real problem. And we need to normalize the safety net of you can tell somebody that you're feeling something without them. Because a lot of people don't want to say it because they think they're just going to be locked up. Like if I called Rob and I was like, hey, man, I don't feel great. I think I'm going to take my life. The responsible thing you would do is call some sort of mental health professional to get me and take me. No, but I'm saying like the most normal people.
Yes, not me, but most normal people, yes.
Right. The thing people normally think to do is like, oh, well, he needs to go to a place to talk to somebody about this, and we're going to 5150 him and all that stuff. That just makes you less likely to tell somebody in the future because you feel like your trust is violated in that way.
Yep.
And like can't even mention it without it becoming a serious thing. And then you have nobody to talk to about the way you feel. And then something awful happens. So I understand why people, especially who have loved ones who all of a sudden die, like think that it's weird that this person who was happy, quote unquote, all of a sudden killed themselves. But that's not because there wasn't a problem. It's just that they weren't being forthright with it, because it's very difficult to go through that sort of feeling. And again, if I could take this as an opportunity to tell people that there is somebody who will always talk to you if you are in that situation.
Jesus Christ.
The Suicide Prevention Lifeline is out there for people who feel like they need somebody to talk to in a judgment-free zone. By
the way, is it weird that when you said deep below, I really thought you were going to say
the Earth in
Parkville, Maryland? Yes.
That number, by the way, just in case, I always like to give it in case we talk about it. 800-273-TALK. So please, if you are feeling that way, talk to somebody that you can trust.
You can also find that number on not the latest, but a recent video on my YouTube channel. So check that out too. Before you do that, I see what you're about to do. Before you do that, any thoughts as you depart the OD Anthem Studios, hashtag OTALA Studios?
I mean, this place will always have will have fond memories for me. This is where we started the whole thing, and the whole LA.
You've been at that studio longer than the original studio now.
Yeah, I know. It's weird. I mean, granted, I had to have been in Parkville longer though, right?
You were
Overall?
in Parkville longer, but the show was not in Parkville longer.
Right. Yeah. Um, I mean, like, I have a tendency, except when Rob dates certain women, I have a tendency to usually stick in places for a while.
And that's an eviction, and it's unavoidable. We have to move. SEAL Team 6 style.
Well, I wasn't even talking about that. I was talking about when we were at month 13, or like while we were in the first lease of a really great place that was cheap and affordable and all that, and didn't have a front gate, a security staff,
Doorman,
doorman who likes to fuck shit up.
Yep.
There was we had a really sweet deal going on there, and I would have probably, I mean, to be honest, if it was up to me, I'd probably would have stayed there for
ever
up until the moment I bought the house.
Yep.
My own house. I would have stayed there.
Yep.
Or until I decided to move to LA or something like that.
You would never have. You would not have.
Maybe not. You know.
I think so. I think you would have stayed.
Yeah. I mean, like even nowadays, I still think about getting a place in Richley's Delight and just seeing how it plays and stuff.
Listen,
like that.
Half of my motivation to move was to get away from the crazy women, and then I came to LA and absolutely did that, and haven't had a problem with that since at all, in the least bit. I
haven't thought about it in a long time. Perhaps I should renew that ringback tone with the never-ending story. I just feel like
no, that was. There will be no driving back and forth between any towns repeatedly. There will be no rescuing. There will be no don't be seen.
Listen, there was a never-ending story too. Different plot, different outcomes. Like, it's
was the second one a horror story that ended in a triple homicide? Because that's the only way this one can end if it continues.
I'm not gonna start asking questions about numbers here, or
yeah, because then premeditating starts getting thrown out. I understand. Yes, it's my policy on life.
I don't want this podcast to be Exhibit A in my conspiracy case.
We have hours and hours of it's like. Moving on to Exhibit 473, we're going to turn to episode 252, 12 minutes and 53 seconds in. Mr. Baker, you said this?
Please explain yourself.
Oh, man.
Yeah, anyway.
Thoughts on the hashtag OTLA series?
It's been a fun ride here at the downtown studios. High above the 110 freeway, but all good things must come to an end, and be moving on to newer and fancier accommodations here soon. So, it's all part of the journey. I should try and find before I leave, like maybe take another picture like we did.
I was gonna say you had the picture of the recliners from Parkville, so
yeah. And you know what? Weirdly enough, for whatever reason, I'm not a date person, but the date that we moved into this place is like ingrained in my head.
Yeah.
11/22/2016.
Well, it's
an
important date in history. 11/22/63.
63. Fuck. What happened?
John F. Kennedy was assassinated.
Oh, yes. Yeah. See, this is why I'm not great with dates, because I don't even remember that one. That one should be
walking around with all of this.
See, but you people with your dates, you think you're so great, but like, I have my own things that I bring to the table. Like,
half of the population doesn't know what an f-stop is, but this guy does.
Go ahead and ask me about literally anyone who's ever played baseball ever, and I can probably tell you something. Meanwhile, I don't remember when JFK died. I'm sorry. I'm flawed as a human being.
But yes, 11/22.
Very specific skills.
11/22/16. Our first day moving in. For those of you who may not know, the hashtag OTALA came from a Cheesy's Pizza stop in Chicago, where I believe I was the one who wrote hashtag OTA takes LA, and then your sister wrote hashtag OTALA as the short version of that, and it ended up in a picture somewhere, and then it became like, well, we were deep below the earth, and now we're high above the 110 freeway. So the evolution of the saying.
And I think hashtag OTA takes LA was what we were using on like Twitter and Instagram for the trip.
Yep. So we could always find the pictures. You can find them right now if you search for it.
And then OTALA just became the shortened. But yeah, that was at a place in Chicago.
Yep. Cheesy's Pizza. No, it was Cheesy's something because it wasn't a pizza place. It was
They sold like various grilled cheese sandwiches or something like that.
And like cheese sticks. It was just all cheese, which is exactly what you need after being on the road for 14 hours and then going to a small hotel room with people.
Hey, let's go to this broom closet after we've had a lot of cheese.
Oh, man.
Don't worry, it's really close to the train stop. So we'll be able to get to all the places we need to go real easily.
It was good.
I miss Chicago. I was on set with a guy who was from Chicago, and then I just feel like I could see it in his face. Like I was telling him like all my fun stories from Chicago, and he's just like, yeah, everyone just does this whenever they see me. They just talk about how much they love their weekend in Chicago to see the Cubs game.
Yeah.
But it's all right. Usually when I bring up Maryland or Baltimore, people are just like, I have a friend who has a cousin whose boyfriend's stepmom
got shot there.
Columbia. Oh. Do you know Columbia, Maryland? I'm
yeah.
Like, yeah, it's, another suburb outside of Baltimore City. And then she's just like, oh, okay. And then move on with
There is a thing going around on TikTok about New York, and it has really made me miss New York. But every time I get that inkling, like maybe I want to go back.
Yeah.
I just go to Google Photos and find either pictures of myself freezing my balls off in December or alternately 6 months later in May, sweating my balls off in May. And I'm just like, this place is not fit for man or beast. If it was 600 miles south, it would be perfect, which makes me think Miami. That's where I have to go.
There's 5 really great weeks in New York. You never would know which 5 they're going to be, but there's 5 really nice New York weeks.
And by that you mean 35 days spread out across the entire year, and they just happen randomly. You have to be there to enjoy them.
Tuesday, June 15th this year, New York's great day. Like
the humidity was 64%. It was 87 degrees. It was the perfect day. The next day was muggy as fuck.
See, but I've had talks with people about this before. Like somebody brought up like earthquakes to me. Like I think it was when I went back home. They were just like, well, "Aren't you worried about earthquakes?" And I'm just like, dude, I was way more worried about humidity. Like that was every day.
Yeah.
Like earthquakes are just sort of like they happen when they happen, and clearly, the big one's going to happen at some point. But like, also with earthquakes, like everything is theoretical, which is like a big problem. Like, it was like the Wilshire Grand was the tallest building built in LA, and they touted how they put in all these top line safety features to earthquake proof it as much as they possibly could.
Yeah.
Like, springs in the foundation, and steel cross beams that keep the stairwell from collapsing, and blah blah blah. Like all these things, like even though it doesn't have a flat roof, they still have the availability to do air rescue from it. Like they really touted like every single possible thing they could do to make people feel like they'd be safe if they went up to the 70th floor of this hotel, And I remember like a reporter saying like, okay, so I keep seeing all over the place, like, built to withstand up to an 8.3 earthquake. Like, why is it always specifically 8.3? And it's like, well, because everything with earthquakes is kind of hypothetical up until 8.3.
Yeah.
Like, you don't really know if anything will survive past an 8.3. And like
all buildings have a resonance frequency, and it's possible that like an 8.7 just hits the resonance frequency of the building, and it literally just comes apart and collapses in a pile. So
yeah, I mean, like, it's all so like, like it's kind of like unnerving that at any point could be the moment that it sort of hits. But
also, we have been in LA for 5 years, going on 5 years now, and we've had 2 big earthquakes. And in that time period, Maryland has also had 2 big earthquakes. So maybe not such a huge concern. I'm just saying. Yeah, there's a big one possibly coming, but also there could be a big one coming in Maryland.
I don't think that Maryland's ever going to get like. I think if we look back on our lifetimes, California will have the bigger one than Maryland will.
But
by that,
the Wilshire Grand can withstand an 8.3. The State Center building can withstand a 0.7.
The Phillips at the power plant can't survive a 3.2.
Yeah, no. I mean, that's the thing. Is like the big one in Maryland is like the one that didn't wake me up the other day, or like weeks ago or whatever, where it's like, did you feel the earthquake? I'm like, no, I took 2 sleeping pills instead of 1, so I probably just slept through it. And that will take down half of Baltimore City if it hits. So, you know.
Yeah, it's funny. Maryland got an earthquake last week or something like that.
Yep.
And I remember I had flashbacks to the Great Maryland earthquake of, what was it, 2008 or something like that?
No, it had to be 10 because we were at Charles Center. That's where we were when it happened.
I was at work.
Oh, I was dropping my bar review books off, and somebody was at the apartment.
Oh, okay. Because I remember being at work and like feeling it shake, and I just thought it was something exploded at the mine because there was a mine right around the corner where I worked.
Yeah.
I was like, man, they really blew up something big there, because it only lasted for like 4 or 5 seconds. Like,
now,
just everything shook, and then I was just like, oh, that was weird. And then I saw earthquake all over Facebook. And then
meanwhile, at the top of our 23rd floor, 24th floor apartment, wherever, 24, that's where we were, right?
2401.
Yes. Somebody was napping on the couch, which apparently moved out from under them, and they dropped just low enough that when the couch came back, it hit them and knocked them across the room, and then they splattered up against the wall. Because, again, buildings not meant to move, and it became just a big tuning fork as the earth shook and threw them around. Tragic at the time, funny as fuck now to picture.
That's how I feel like everyone will remember this this podcast. Tragic at the time, funny as fuck now.
Yeah. And where would people be able to find more things that are tragic in the moment but funny as fuck?
OhTheAnthem.com, CoreyToTheAnthem.com, OhTheAnthem on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and the listener line, 443-219-7595.
What's that number again?
443-219-7595. You can find more of me at my website, CoreyBakerFilmmaker.com, Facebook.com/CoreyBakerFilm, and at Legends5 on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. I'm not going to say anymore.
Where's that new video? Corey? Has a new video coming?
Because I've been moving and working, and trust me, things will happen. I just give me a week.
Your background there looks very much move ready. Just this bare walls, ready to go.
Well, I was told the flags will not be coming. The flags will not become part of decoration. And then I explained that I bought frames for decoration, and they sat empty for a year. And then because I was tired of looking at empty picture frames, I put wire characters inside of them, and then
nobody noticed.
A year. So I will not have bare walls, but we'll find out what happens with the flags, I guess.
And what's going to happen with your just manhood in general? Are we going to find that at some point in the new apartment, or? I
mean, I don't know. The park's right across the street. Maybe I'll find it there. I don't know.
I think probably not.
Chopping wood or something like that, like.
I think not. You can find more of me at Robert and Cheek. Wow, I did not.
Look,
I did not edit this frame down. My fault, everybody. Let me try to center myself so you can actually see me. You can find more of me at Robert and Cheek on your social networks. I do have a new video up today, Monday. And I will have a new video up every single week for at least the next 3 weeks. Had a video up last week as well. Make sure you check that out. It's a little long, or 2 weeks ago. It's a little long, 90 minutes. You can break it up into several chunks. Very interesting, I think. Not as interesting as the one today, which I'm sure will be the number 3 most watched video on my channel shortly. So enjoy that. Got other stuff, other irons in the fire. Basically, the less Corey gets done, the more I'm inspired to do things. So this is really going to be a renaissance for me, I think. Also, we're coming out of pandemic, and everyone's going out, which means I officially have to come up with new reasons not to go hang out with people. So I got to get busy and write some stuff and shoot some stuff. So I have excuses.
Yeah.
So Yeah.
All right. Well, I think we've done good here today.
Tragic in the moment, but funny as fuck now. I think we've done something. I don't know if it's good. But as always, you're listening to the OD Anthem podcast for the last time, coming to you from the hashtag OTLA studios, high above the 110 freeway in downtown Los Angeles, California. For Corey, this is Rob. Have a great week, everybody. And we'll try to come up with a new call name for the new studio next week.
Yeah, we'll have to.
Corey's going to try and tell you it's Chinatown. It's not. It's
Dogtown.
Highland Park or Dogtown. Something, but
we'll figure it out. We'll come up with something snappy.
I think you have more faith in us than I have in us. But have a great week, everybody.
Bye.